welcome back to another installment of Birdbrain Q&A, a video series where no question is too flighty. I am your co-host, Pam Moore. I am a stand-up comic, community builder, and writer, and this is your co-host, Lauren Benedict.
Thanks, Pam. I'm Lauren Benedict. I'm an ornithologist and I like talking about birds, so here we are.
Yeah, she's talking about birds. I'm asking questions about birds. That's how we roll here at Birdbrain Q&A. And today we're really going to get into some interesting questions. Lauren had a really cool opportunity to travel to Tanzania, where I think she saw lots of cool birds. Lauren, tell us about that.
Yeah, so this episode is absolutely inspired by that trip. I was in Tanzania in November and December of this year with a group called Homeward Bound, which has a mission to train women leaders in STEM fields. And so I met 60 some incredible women who were doctors and engineers, chemists and geologists working on all kinds of science fields. And we spent a week in Serengeti National Park and we went into Ngorongoro Crater and we saw, I mean, beautiful landscapes, beautiful people, and of course, beautiful birds.
Amazing. How did you get to go? Did you apply? Did they select you?
You apply to the program, yeah, and if you get into the program, then you have the option to do just an online training program, which is a year-long thing where you do get to build community with women all over the world, which is really fantastic. But then there's also this 3-week in-person experience that just really enhanced that, and that's where you get to have that on-the-ground learning and in-person interactions. And I was lucky. This is the first year they've gone to Tanzania. Previously, they've gone to Antarctica, which also sounds amazing. But yeah, this was the inaugural African journey.
That is so cool. And how many weeks were you there?
It was about a 2-week program, and then I went to Zanzibar afterwards because when else will I get to go to Zanzibar?
Why Zanzibar? You're so far from home, and there was probably so many places. I'm guessing for the bird watching, but you tell me.
Yeah, partly for the birds. Actually, Zanzibar is part of Tanzania. Tanzania is a really interesting country. It's made up of two sections. There is the mainland section, Tanganyika, and then Zanzibar, and those two together make up the whole country. So I felt like if I was going to see the country, it would be nice to go see Zanzibar.
Wow. And I've got to ask, what was the best dish you ate on your journey?
Actually, oh, the best taste I had probably was at one of the hotels we stayed at. They grew their own food, and I wandered through a open gate one morning into the back where there were gardens, and the gardener was there. And he cut me a hunk of sugar cane straight off the cane and handed it to me, and I ate that fresh sugar cane, and it was incredible.
I can't even envision a piece of sugar cane. What was the texture like? What could you compare it to that as a food I might have eaten?
It looks like bamboo. So picture a big bamboo stalk and cut the sort of shiny outer part off, and it's this stringy, I mean, it's kind of like a piece of balsa wood that you're chewing on, and all of this delicious sweet juice is coming out.
Wow. Well, I am insatiably curious about all the things. I feel like I could keep you here for an hour, like just grilling you with questions about Tanzania, but we have important bird questions to answer. We've got these burning questions. Um, so let's dive in. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do
Okay,
it.
I'm ready. We've got a question. This is from Katie, who joined you on Homeward Bound. This is a two-parter. What are some special things about African birds, and why should we stop the Jeep to look at sandgrouse?
Yeah, I'll get to the second part in a minute because that's referring to a very specific thing that happened where I yelled, "Stop the Jeep!" for sandgrouse. But first of all, African birds are great. For me, the thing that is so exciting is that there are just so many species, and not just species, but genera and families and even orders of birds. These are like high-level taxonomic groupings of birds that don't exist in the US, that only exist in Africa, or that exist in Africa and Asia and elsewhere, but I can't see them at home. So when I go to Africa, I get really excited about something like a turaco, which I can't see here, or an ostrich. I mean, that's a great bird that you can only see there. So that's always really fun. And sandgrouse are one of those awesome birds, which is why I yelled, "Stop the Jeep." And everybody else in my Jeep was like, "Is there a lion? What are we seeing? Is there a jaguar? Cheetah hunting? What?" And I was like, "No, it's that little brown bird down there." Because sandgrouse don't look like much. They are little sort of brownish birds. They look kind of like a cross between a pigeon and a quail, I would say. And they just kind of putter around on the ground. But they have these really cool adaptations. They live in these very dry places. So we're in the middle of the Serengeti and there is no water to be seen. These birds might nest in those totally dry places. And the males have these special feathers on their belly that they will fly to water and they soak their belly feathers and it absorbs the water like a sponge. And then they fly back to their nest. And that's how they get water to their chicks.
Wow, the men feed the chicks.
Yep, it's really pretty unique among birds. This feather structure has been studied and it's really kind of a very special adaptation. And I think it's just such a cool example of how a bird that doesn't look like much, that most safari drivers are just going to keep going right past, is actually super interesting.
That's awesome. I mean, that really aligns, I think, very well with the duck metaphor. They look very still on the surface, but they're going like gangbusters underneath, and that just because you don't see it doesn't mean something exciting is not happening. I'm sure there's a lot of like real world applications to a structure like these feathers that can hold what do you know the stats on like, they say an ant can carry like whatever a million times its body weight. I'm exaggerating, but like how the volume of water that it can hold as a ratio. I'm saying this wrong, but you know what I mean. Like
I think I know what you mean. Let's see, are you asking if there are real world engineering useful properties to this that we should be studying?
bing bing bing.
I think so. So there are definitely people that are more on that kind of engineering, mechanical, materials side of things, studying this to try and understand how they do it. So you can find all kinds of SEM, like scanning electron microscopy images of these special feathers online if you look. I don't know if anybody's monetized it yet. I'm gonna have to do a little research and see. I'm not sure, but certainly people are looking at it from that more structural point of view as well as the, oh, they can feed their babies point of view.
And when you said stop the Jeep and everyone realized it was a sand grouse and you saw the sand grouse, do you think your cohort of brilliant STEM adjacent women were they also as excited about the sand grouse as you were once you enlightened them as to what this was all about?
Yes, and that was part of what made this experience so amazing is that they were. I told them this story and they all were like, wow, I'm so glad we stopped, which was such a fantastic thing. Like it was so great to be in that place with these people that were so curious and have them share my excitement about birds.
All right, let's move on to the next question. This one also comes from another homeward bound participant. This is from Bea, and she asks, I like this. What are ostrich mating and parenting behaviors?
So fascinating. Ostriches are kind of like the swingers of the bird world. So ostriches typically, males will build a nest, and this is just kind of a scrape in the ground. And he'll have one primary female that he's working with, and she'll lay eggs in that nest. But other females will also be wandering by and mating with that male and laying some of their eggs in the nest. And his primary female's wandering off now and then to visit some other males, mating with them, laying her eggs in their nests, also maybe laying some of the eggs that they fertilized back in her first male's nest. So that nest is full of eggs that have such a mixture of parentage. You can have like 18 females laying eggs in the nest of a single male. So it's a little crazy.
Wait a minute. And it sounds like, if I understood you correctly, not only are they laying eggs in a different male's nest, he may not be the bio dad.
Yep, that is correct. Actually, this whole topic of bird mating behavior is so fascinating. This deserves another episode in the future. Maybe we'll put that on our list. But
I'm
ostriches
down.
are really kind of cool in this way, that the male takes the lead on the nest and so on. And then after the babies hatch, they incubate for a long time. It takes over a month. They're sitting on that nest out in the sun, right? The Serengeti sun. And after they hatch, then the male and female that tended that nest will usually stay with those babies and lead them around and they'll feed themselves. And apparently sometimes it then happens that they'll run into another family and something occurs in those interactions and two of the parents walk away with all the babies. They crush them up.
Something occurs. Can you say more?
I actually need to get into literature. I don't know. I mean, I've read the overview of that this what happens. Um, Unclear why, but I can imagine that if you were a parent, there would be a benefit to you in having more than just your own young in a big group because they're all feeding themselves. You don't really have to do the work to feed them. And if there are more, that's dilution. If a predator comes along, it's probably going to take, it's more likely to take somebody else's baby. And if you're a parent on the other side, you're like, sure, take my babies. They'll be safer in your big group. I'm going to go off and not have to deal with them anymore.
Wow.
Potential
Wow.
benefits on both sides. So I would hypothesize that that's what's driving it. But really, I'm kind of guessing here.
Fascinating. Okay, we've got another question from Elia. This is Elia's four, maybe our youngest question asker to date.
I think so.
Okay, her Auntie Suzanne transcribed this for her. She asks, do turkeys live in Africa?
So I got this question around Thanksgiving. I'm pretty sure what she's talking about is our good old wild turkey that you see across the United States. And for that, no, they do not live in Africa. They only live essentially in the United States. They're a North American species. They're pretty restricted to areas right around the US, a little bit into Canada and Mexico too. But they are probably in Africa because the poultry industry might have shipped a few over there. So yes, that. But in general, turkeys are special to America. So there are no turkeys native to Africa, but there are turkey-like birds that are really kind of cool. So while I was in Tanzania, we saw helmeted guinea fowl, which is a delightful bird. There are also vulturine guinea fowl and various other chicken or turkey-like birds there that probably kind of fill that turkey role in Africa, but not as cool as our North American turkey.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Our next question comes from Diana, also a Homeward Bound participant. Diana asks, I love this question. What bird has the funniest name?
Oh my God. So many directions you can go with this one. This is like such a softball from Diana. She's just given me this giant meatball of a question. Birds have all kinds of delightful names. I don't even know where to start because the funniest could be things that just sound kind of over the top and overwrought, like the magnificent bird of paradise. That's a lot to put on a bird, you know. Or there are things that are very specific and odd, like the Abyssinian scimitar bill. Or there are things that have really fun Latin names. I think all ornithologists agree that the very best Latin name, scientific name for a bird, is the name of the hoopoe, which is Upupa epops. So fun. Try it. Say it.
Oop, oop, oop. I thought it was going to be easy. Oopupa epops.
Upupa epops.
Oopupa epops.
Yeah. So that was
Wow.
really fun. But of course, I think by far the funniest are all the ones that have some kind of double entendre meaning. So there are all sorts of boobies. There are blue-footed boobies and red-footed boobies and Nazca boobies and all kinds of boobies. There are lots of cocks. There are woodcocks. If you think about it, peacock is kind of a funny word.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are all the tits. So there are blue tits, and there are Siberian tits, and there are so many kinds of tits. And in fact, one of my favorite stories here is that one of the most influential and important long-term research studies on birds that has been going on for, I think, almost 80 years now, is being done by researchers in England who are studying in Wytham Wood. Very esteemed colleagues, right? All of these PhD researchers working on great tits.
Wow. Wow. So I have a question. We've covered tits, cocks, boobies. Can we still upload this video as appropriate for a for an immature, what do you call them? Children, for children? I was going to say an immature audience. I think you're looking at an immature audience right here. But is this okay? Or do we have to flag this as adult content?
We could mark this one not for children, but we're just talking about birds. The only words I
We're
have said are the
literally talking
names
about
of
the,
birds.
yeah, this is like, is this what they meant when they were talking about like the birds and the bees? Like this
Yeah.
is just the bird. Maybe we need to do a bee follow up.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the funniest names of bees, but we could. We could. Yeah, and it's a dangerous zone. I mean, I teach ornithology and we always get to this research and I'm like, so in this very important study on great tits, and my whole class laughs and I'm just like, yeah, I know. I know. Don't Google, by the way, don't Google the name of the species.
Yeah.
Doesn't work out well. Every ornithologist has made that mistake. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I had no idea how racy ornithology could be. I'm learning so much. Can I move on to our last question, or do we have more to say about birds with crazy names? I thought those guinea helmet type birds you were talking about before, I thought those names were kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, vulturine guinea fowl. That's a pretty great name. I mean, we are only scratching the surface. Just look through, get yourself a field guide to Birds of Africa and start flipping through, and you'll just giggle all the way through. It's great. They're delightful names.
Amazing. Okay. For our last question of the day, minus, I'm sure I'll have a few follow-ups. This one comes from Shannon, also a homeward bound lady. What are the best examples? Oh God, I love this question. What are the best examples of female leadership in the bird world?
Yeah, and Shannon's asking this because, of course, we were all part of this global leadership summit, is what they called it, where it was all women, women being trained to be leaders. So there are lots of, I think, exciting, cool examples of this. There are plenty of species of birds where females are the ones that are very much in control of where they mate or where they nest or things like that. There are plenty of species that migrate long distances, and sometimes the older individuals and females in the flock will know how to do that. So there are lots of females that we said in a previous episode might go mate with a male and they get some sperm and then they go off and they are completely on their own. So like female hummingbirds are incredible. They build these beautiful nests, they raise their babies, they do all of this without any assistance from the male. And there are also really cool behaviors where they kind of manage what's happening in the nest in interesting ways. So if you think about those female ostriches, remember we said the ostriches have this crazy nest where lots of females are coming and laying eggs. Sometimes some of those eggs get moved out, and it seems that that primary female is actually managing who gets to lay in that nest. So she's got some really interesting kind of social dynamics that she's managing there, which is pretty interesting. A couple more examples of female leadership that I can think of. There are some birds that live in family groups led by females, and one great example is the Galapagos hawk, who live in family groups where there's one female and she's kind of the leader, and she has multiple males that she might mate with, and they all form this social cohort. And together, maybe there are 4 or 5 birds there, and they're defending a territory and they're hunting together and so on. But it's really that one female and her several mates that are living in that space and doing that.
Lauren, that was fascinating. We have really gotten a lot of information today about everything from birds with names that include words like tits and cocks and boobies, to a funny story about finding a sand grouse when you least perhaps expected it. This has been so enriching for me. Everyone watching, thanks for being here. I hope it was enriching to you too. Please subscribe so that you do not miss our next installment where we are going to be answering the questions that are probably better directed at your therapist.
Yeah, we said send us all your questions, and people sent us some questions that, ooh, we're gonna have to dig deep into our psyches to try and understand these. And I also want to end by thanking all of my fellow Homeward Bound participants. It was so wonderful being in Tanzania with you, and thank you for getting me even more excited about birds than I was before. It was really exciting to do some birding with you all.
Amazing. And I want to say a big, huge shout out to everyone who has watched, who has liked, who has commented, who has shared. It helps us reach people who want their bird brain questions answered. So let's just keep spreading the word about birds. If you like this, hit that like button, tell a friend, subscribe. And until next time, let's keep it bird brained.
Yeah, see you next time, everybody.